just first refresh our memory about Os Chaf Zayin, which is on page 256. We are really on the next page, Kuf Chaf Tes, the line that starts ביוסר או בבהלה פתאומית, ביסר הרבה מכוחו. ביסר הרבה מכוחו. About the middle of the page. 257, which is קוף כף טס. The line that starts ביסר הרבה מכוחו. It's in the middle, more or less. ביסר הרבה מכוחו. It's under התנועה and over שהחומר. And that line, we're at the end of the line, towards the end of the line, the second half, which says, בכך הוא כל עניין חומר וצורה. Okay, what are we talking about? So let's review quickly from the beginning of Os Chaf Zayin. Please mute yourselves. And bottom line is that the Rebbe is saying that after we, again, this is Shaar Hayichud is a kitzur, of Seder Ishtalshelus. It's a very brief kind of teachings in terms of how much each prat in Shaar Hayichud includes. But still, after learning for a while about Ava, which is Av Va'em of Atzilus, and the different Yechudim, whether inner Yechudim or outer Yechudim, and of course the relation of Av Va'em with Keser, with Arich, and so on. Now we are going to explain, says the Rebbe, after explaining the lights of Ava, of Av Va'em, we are now about to explain the lights of Zo, of the Midos of Atzilus, which he called Yisrael veYaakov, the higher term in relation to Bina is Yisrael, the lower term of the Midos in relation to Malchus is Yaakov. We will talk about all that. So we will talk about the different Yechudim between Yisrael and Yaakov and Rachel, and Leah and Rachel, which is Bina and Malchus. But before we go into explain the Midos of Atzilus and their Yechudim, internal Yechudim, first, says the Rebbe, let's bring the understanding regarding the topic of Oros and Kelim, lights and vessels, Bichlal u'Bifrat, because it's known what Kabbalah states. The Zohar says the Iyu v'chayo ichad and Iyu v'garmo ichad. So Iyu v'chayoi, him and his life force, these are the Oros. How Or and Sof is one with the Oros of Atzilus, of the Spheros of Atzilus, and Iyu v'garmoi, him and his organs or his kelim are also one. So garmoi, the organs of godliness, so to speak, are the kelim of Atzilus. So side mitzad kelim and side mitzad oros, if we want to differentiate between the oros and the kelim, so mitzad oros, from the perspective of the oros, the lights of the spheros of Atzilus, the spheros are called, and the oros, the spheros are called Eser Spheros Blima. The truth is that applies to the kelim too. Generally, we say it bechlal on the spheros. And when the sphera is defined, any sphera, really it's defined mainly by its kelim. Yet, we say about the spheros bechlal, the spheros of Atzilus, that there are 10 spheros bli ma, that these are 10 spheros without a whatness, without a substance, not physical substance and not any other substance, without mahus, without a real mitzias separately from its source. So the 10 spheros are called bli mahus, and therefore the Zohar says, "Velav mikol inun midos klal," and therefore godliness is not at all in the category of midos the way we know them. And that applies mainly to the oros of the spheros. That it is not at all, chokhmah lemaila is not at all what we perceive as chokhmah lemata of any kind, of any level. There is a big gap between the way in terms of the oros of the spheros, there is a big gap between the midos, the way they are before they are expressed through kalim, and after they are expressed through kalim. Before they are expressed through kalim, they are not at all in the category of midos, not even midos of Atzilus, the way we, so to speak, know them. But mitzad the kalim, because of the kalim, the midos become what the Rebbe is calling a metzius davar ma. They become a metzius, which means a existence of something. It's not a real thing, but something. Davar ma. It's a thing of whatness. Very, very ethereal. And this, what it says that Hashem issued 10 tikkunim, apik yud tikkunim, that Hashem issued 10 garments to Or and Sof, really, and he called them 10 spheros, with which or through which he reveals himself to the world and he conducts the world. And all that we know that Elokus is expressed through the spheros of Atzilus, through the templates of the different holy names of Ab, Sag, Ma, and Ban, which we discussed, which are associated with Chokhmah, Bina, Zo, and Malchus, which means the way all 10 spheros are called with 4 names of Ab, Ma, Sag, Ma, and Ban. And in the Lashon of the Zohar, these 4 names are called the secrets of the holy name of Yud K Vav K. All that comes from the kalim of the spheros of Atzilus. So when you talk about the oros of the spheros of Atzilus, you can't talk about all this yet, because the oros are so divested from anything. They are so intangible that you can't even apply the midos the way we perceive midos to them, the way we know. They are totally unknown on that level of oros. But when the oros are integrating with kalim, and we will learn what kalim are, we have to define what kalim are, but when the oros are integrating with kalim, then we can talk about all these names and the different expressions that come about through the spheros. So that what gives the spheres of Atzilus, some kind of Metzius, that happens through the Kalim of the spheres. When we are talking about some kind of even an intangible form, but some kind of a Metzius in terms of the names of the holy, or the names of the holy name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and the different expression of the names through Chochmah, through Bina, through Midos, through Malchus. This all is possible when you're talking about the errors coming into the Kelim. Now, when you're looking at that, in terms of the relationship between the Kelim and the Eros, generally, there are three general Kelim that are hosting the three general Eros of what we call Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. What are these three Kelim? They are Moicha, Liba, and Kavda. The brain, the heart, and liver. These are the general three Kelim to Naran, which means Moicha is a Keli for Neshama. It's just the way the spirits are expressing themselves as a person. So now we can talk about ourselves. So the inyan of Neshama of Atzilus, that corresponds to Chochmah, and Bina, let's put it this way. Really more Bina. Chochmah is already Chaya and Yechida. So Chaya and Yechida are not mislabesh in Kelim, as we know by ourselves, that there's no organs of the body through which the Chaya and in which the Chaya and Yechida are dwelling. When they show up equally all over. So, however, the neshama and the ruach and the nefesh, each one has its scale. So the neshama dwells in the brain, the ruach dwells in the heart, and the nefesh dwells in the liver. And that, in terms of the body of the person, and of course we constantly trying to do projections, and the Rebbe will teach us also to project it, understanding of the biological and psychological operation of a human being helps us by projecting it on the spheros, lehavdil. So we have the highest keli, the moicha, the brain, in which the neshama dwells, which mostly associated with Bina. Nishmas Adam Tevinem, which is basically the nervous system. Then we have the liver, Liba, the liver, the lave, which is the cardiovascular system, which hosts the Ruach, the Midos. Obviously, the Moicha hosts the intellect, the Moichin, and the Liba, the Midos, the emotions. And then that's the cardiovascular system, the blood, and so on, the circulation. And then we have the Kavda, the Kaved, which is the liver, which is the reflective system, digestion, and so on, and creating blood. That hosts the Nefesh, which corresponds to Malchus. Yechida and Chaya higher than the Hagbala, than the boundarying aspect of Keli. Then we learned that each Keli and all Kelim have Rosh, Toch, and Sof. They have the inner aspect, the middle aspect, and the external aspect. Pnimius HaKelim, Emtzayis HaKelim, and Chitzonius HaKelim. And through some calculations, we got to 248 levels of Rosh Toch and Sof of Zo with the Hey Chasadi. That now we're on Kuf Chaf Tes, third line. This is generally the structure of the Kelim of Zo, of the Midos of Atzilus. We are all in Zo. And that is called Gufa de Malka, the body of the king. So if the Avaim were like the head, then of the king, the Lev, Zo is like the body, the torso of the king, and also, and generally the body of the king, and also the Zohar says, Gam levushim tkinas lun. And also, there are levushim, there are garments, from which means machshava, dibur, and maise, we will discuss it, from which neshamas come. All this is operating in a manner, the Rebbe is now mapping a very general map, and then we will learn prat by prat, detail by detail. All this entire system obviously operates in a manner of Or and Keli, the interaction between light and vessel. In many manners, we will learn that there are many manners of the interactions between Or and Keli. But we need to understand, so there are many aspects and levels of the relationships between Oros and Kelim, but we need to understand some principles. And here is one. That what happens when the Or comes into the Keli, a major change happens in the light. And the Rebbe compares it to make it more understood to our own body in relation to the different powers, spiritual powers of the soul. Like the spiritual power of Re'iyah. The soul has a spiritual power of seeing. It's a spiritual power. The soul sees Elokus, whatever it means. It's not a physical seeing. And it has many, many levels to this seeing. But it certainly has nothing to do with physical seeing. However, when this power of seeing, which is a spiritual power of the soul, is now invested and blended through a process of hagshama, which means making the light, making itself more and more coarse until it's like a keli. As Fegi likes to say, Mis Abu Sa'or Nivra Keli. From the thickening of the light, the Keli comes about. We will talk about that. But right now, we were talking about the relation between the Or, the pure light, and the Keli. So it's like the power of Re'iyah HaRuchni, the spiritual power of seeing, when it is invested and blended in the physical receptacle or keli or tool of this power, which is the eye. And then we have what we experience as Re'iyah Gashmis, as seeing in a physical, on a physical level, the way we see. So what happens to the light when it got invested and blended into the eye? What happened to the power, the spiritual power of seeing, when it is now expressed through the eye, the keli of the eye? Two things happen, two changes, says the Rebbe. One is there is a complete change in the nature of seeing. That now, instead of being a spiritual seeing, it's a physical seeing. So it's a complete change in the substance of seeing itself, so to speak, in the mahus, in the nature of seeing itself. From spiritual nature, now it becomes a physical nature of seeing. And the same thing is the intellect, the power of intellect. The soul has a power of chokhmah and a power of bina, which are spiritual powers. And these are tools that, on the higher levels, these are tools of communication with godliness. But when these spiritual powers, intellectual powers of chokhmah and bina are invested in the brain and blend into the brain, now we have human physical concepts. We are used to concepts. We think they are, because they are the highest power within ourselves, we think they are very, very high, and they are high in comparison to the digestions, for an example. Of course, there's much more spirituality in the experience of the brain than in the experience of the intestines. However, it is all physical intellect. We don't know what is an intellect which is divested of the brain, of the keli. It's a physical intellect. Now we have an idea, the way the brain experiences an idea, the way the eye experiences seeing. And so too, the power of movement. The soul has a power of movement. And with this power of movement, the soul goes from world to world, but it doesn't take even half an inch, not even half a millimeter. It's beyond time, beyond space, but it can move from one level to the other, or whatever movement means there, spiritually. But when it is invested in the body, now we have a physical movement. It's a big change in the nature of the power of tnuah, of movement of the soul, which is a spiritual power. And another example the Rebbe gave is the koach hatzmicha, that the power of growth in the earth is a spiritual, infinite, unlimited power of growth. It's a spiritual power. But when it is mislabesh and invested in the earth, then it is expressed through physical growth of vegetation or whatever it is. So this is one change that happens when the light comes into the keli. The nature of the light changes from keli-free state, which is completely intangible, to much more coarse kind of expression when it is invested in the keli. So the nature of the light changes. That's one change. And the second is the inyan of Agbala, that now the powers are expressed in a manner of limitation. They are not unlimited. Like the earth, when we talk about the power, the spiritual power of growth, which is in the earth, it's not limited at all. It's not limited. There's no it's not limited by the how many kinds of vegetations theoretically it can produce, and how many bekamus. In echos and in kamus is not limited. And depending on the seed that you plant, that's what it will give you. But it is itself is not limited. But when it is expressed through physical growth, now it will be limited. It will be defined. And also when the spiritual power of seeing will be expressed in the eye, now the power of seeing will become a limited power. There's so far you can see. There's so far you can hear. There's so much you can understand. Limitation in many ways. Bekamus, be'echus. Like the brain will be too small to contain something, or to understand something, or the depths of it, whatever it is. So the cotton, the smallness of the keli limits the expression of the light. Doesn't only change its nature, but also limits it. Like koach hatnua, the power of movement. There's so much you can walk, so much you can lift. Limited, mugbal. But the power of the spiritual power, which is invested in the keli, is not limited. And this is where we are holding. By the way, how you see that we have powers more than we are usually experiencing? The power itself, it sometimes shows up, like he gave the example of picking in a time of panic or in a time of emergency, being able to pick up something that normally one cannot. So that is a peak of the koichos that are beyond the normal limitation of the kelia showing up, the spiritual power. In any case, this is where we are holding, and וכך הוא כל עניין חומר וצורה. The line that starts ביסר, הרבה מכוחו. קכ"ט, 257. After the parenthesis. וכך הוא כל עניין חומר וצורה. So it is. Any inyan of matter and form, like or and keli. שהחומר, that the matter, the keli, מלבד שהוא בא בשינוי המהוס, in addition to the fact that it comes in a change of the nature of that power, of that light, that the light changes, which means the tzura changes, that the keli, the chomer changes the tzura, the matter changes the form, and the keli changes the light. In addition to that, הנה הוא מגביל לצורה. It also limits the form. So it changes the form and it limits it, as we learn. The keli changes the light and limits it. Aval, on the other hand, the Rebbe now is pointing out the correlation and the intimate relation between the keli and the or the chomer and the tzura, the matter and the form. So one affects the other. אבל החומר הוא מעין ודוגמת הצורה. First of all, the chomer always has to have some kind of common denominator and similarity to the form. Like the eye has some kind, the keli of the eye, the transparent matter of the eye, the special luminous matter, physical matter of the eye is matching the power of sight, the spiritual power of seeing. If the spiritual power of seeing would be invested in the foot, it will not be manifested. It will not be revealed. Because the foot, the chomer of the foot, is not a suitable matter for the power of seeing. So we see that there is a correlation between the keli and the or. There is a correlation between the organ and the spiritual power that is in it. There's a correlation between the chomer, the matter, and the tzura, the form. That the chomer הוא מעין ודוגמת הצורה. The chomer, the matter, is similar and has a resemblance, some kind of resemblance to the form. כמו חומר כלי העין לראות. Like the chomer, the matter of the vessel of the eye, is suitable for seeing. וחומר כלי המוח להשכיל. And the matter of the keli of the brain to conceptualize. The keli, the matter, the physical matter of the brain is suitable for the intellect, the power of intellect. וכהי גבנה in the likes. And now, Fegi, we are coming to you that you shouldn't think that originally the Chomer and the Tzura, the matter and form, have no connection between one and another. One was manufactured in USA, Tzura is manufactured in USA, and the matter, Chomer, is manufactured in China. No, that's not the case. And therefore the Tzura is mislabash in the Chomer. No, that's not the case, says the Rebbe. Rather, אבל החומר, you should know, נעשה מהסעבוס והגשמה של הצורה הרוחניס. The chomer, the matter, the keli, is made out of the thickening. Ave means thick. Ein veis hey. Hisabus means the thickening. And hagshama, coarsening. Materialization. Shel hatzura haruchnis. Of the spiritual form. So the matter is a thickening, a coarsening of the form. The keli is like the thickening and the coarsening of the light. Misof kol hamadregos shebo, which means that the chomer is coming about from the lowest level, the lowest of all levels of the tzura, of the form. Matter comes about from the lowest level of the tzura. So we have or and keli, we have light and vessel. The light comes about from the lowest level. I'm sorry, the keli, the vessel comes about from the lowest level of the light, which is the thickest level of the light. The lowest level is always the most tangible and coarse, and the highest is the most intangible. So the chomer comes about, is made out of the thickening and the coarsening of the spiritual form, misof kol hamadregot shebo, from the end of all levels of form, the lowest. כמו מסוף המדרגה דרוחניוס הצמיחה נעשה כוח צמיחה בגשם. Like the example of the power of growth, how in the earth there's a spiritual power of growth. From the lowest level of that spiritual power of growth is a spiritual, originally growing is a spiritual power. Really, we know it from our own selves. There's a physical growth, but there's an emotional growth, and there's a spiritual growth. This is all within the limitations of our body. So there are also other spiritual growth, and it's infinite and unlimited. But what happens when this power is interacting with the seed in the earth? Then the lowest aspect of the power of growth becomes now the physical growth of whatever vegetation will come out of the earth. Now it will be expressed through physical growth. And so too regarding the relation between the soul and the body. If the soul is the tzura, the form, the body is the matter. So the lowest end of the spiritual chayus, מוסוף של חיוס הרוחני, the nefesh, מלובש בדם. The end and the lowest aspect of the life, the spiritual life force of the soul, the lowest end of it, the coarsest of the spiritual chayus of the soul is invested in the blood of the body. And to be more specific, Chassidus said that in the steam that comes from the blood, which is the most spiritual aspect of the physical. So the most physical aspect of the spiritual meets the most spiritual aspect of the physical. או כמו שכתוב, as it says, הדם הוא הנפש. That's why we cannot spill blood. The dam is the nefesh. And we have to watch not to lose too much blood, because the dam is the nefesh. What means that Chazal states that the adam hu nefesh, that the blood is the soul, which means that the life depends on the blood. If one, God forbid, loses too much blood, then there's a sakana, there's danger that he would lose his life, which means the nefesh will not be connected to the body anymore, because the nefesh connects to the body through the blood. The lowest, coarsest aspect of the nefesh connects with the highest aspect of the guf, which is the steam of the blood. In terms of the chayus ruchni. וכן, וכך, וכולו, and so on, all these examples. וכך, סוף המדרגה של אור השכל, another example, הרוחני, the lowest level of the light of the spiritual intellect, which we are not used to experience spiritual intellect. We are experiencing intellect only through our physical brain. So no matter how high our intellect is, it's physical intellect. But when the spiritual light of intellect מתמזג בחומר כלי המוח, blends with the material, with the matter of the physical brain, then the same interaction happens. The same result is happening. וכן סוף הגשמה דרוחניוס הראי הממוזג בחומר העין. And the lowest aspect of the power of seeing is invested in the matter of the eye. ולזאת, because we see such an intimate correlation between the form and the matter, between the light and the vessel, there's such an intimate correlation between the two, we see an expression for it in our physical reality. אנו רואים שבכמה מקומות, that in many places, in many instances, או בכמה מקרים, באין הגדלת החומר עם הגדלת הצורה. We see that the growing of the matter comes together with the growing of the form, which means the development of the matter will come along with the development of the expression of the form. The development of the keli, of the matter, will come about together with the maturing and the developing of the form. So, באים הגדלת החומר עם הגדלת הצורה כאחד ממש. The growing and developing and maturing of the chomer, of the matter, and the form come together ממש. They come about together. כמו like בהגדלת חומר כלי הגוף. כלי הגוף שנגדלים ביחד עם גידול אור וחיוס הצורה הרוחניוס. Like in terms of a human experience. So the growing and the preparation, I'm sorry, I'm skipping line. The growing of the matter of the different organs of the body, that they grow together with the growing of the expression of the or and the chayus of the spiritual tzura, the spiritual form. So the more the body is developing, the higher and the more expansive expression of the soul comes about. כמו like גידול הכנת חומר המוח לפי ערך גידול האור והצורה של השכל. Like the necessary growing and preparing of the brain, correlating to the measure of the growth of the light and the form of the seichel, of the intellect. So in order for more mature and more expensive or deeper or higher intellect to be experienced, there has to be also the development, the physical development of the brain. שכאשר יגדל התינוק ויצמח אור שכלו ברוחניוסו, ממילא יצמח כלי הכנס מוחו. That we see that as the baby or the child grows, and therefore you see that the light of his intellect is growing, and he's understanding more and perceiving more and so on. Beruchnius, mimele, automatically and naturally, you'll see the yitzmach will grow also the keli, the vessel of his brain that prepares the achana, that prepares him to be able to understand more. They go together, hand in hand. The physical growth with the spiritual expression, the matter and the form, the keli and the light. וכמו שכתוב, as it says, the pasuk says, ימים ידברו ורוב שנים, the days of a person speak, and the amount of the many years that he lives adds to his wisdom. שנגדל ככלי עם האור, that as and certainly when you talk about the childhood of the person, you see it very apparently, but even later on, you see the brain keeps developing and so on, and the grooves and so on. So nigdal hakeli im haor yom v'yom. The keli grows with the light daily, every day, ad ein shana, and a person develops form and matter together until 70 years. שבה לכלל גדלוס המוחין כידוע, and talking about the intellectual development, the potential intellectual spiritual development of a person, that the keli, the brain, until the age of 70, the brain is growing with the light together, which means there is a constant interaction between the development, the physical development of the brain, and the depth and the quality and the ability and the amount and the measure and the heights and depths of his understanding and his intellect. So a person becomes wiser and wiser until the age of 70 represents gadlus hamoichin, that there is an ideal interaction between the or maximal, optimal in a blend between the spiritual power of intellect and the physical brain, and they are a perfect match. Gadlus hamoichin. So now the brain is ready to express the highest level of intellect that the soul can express, still under the limitations of a body, but gadlus hamoichin is the greater maturity of human intellect. This is the end of Chaf Zayin. And we have few more minutes, so let's go to the bio of the Paritcher that will enable us to review the whole os about understanding the subject of Oros and Kelim in order to understand Zo and the Yichudim of Zo. So that takes place on page, which page? Page 374. 374. והנה now אחר שנסבאר דרך פרט קצת בעניין אורוס דאהבה ובחינת ייחודם בפנימיוס וחיצוניוס כנ"ל, after explaining דרך פרט קצת, a little bit, in details, but a little bit, he says, regarding the lights of Avaim, of Atzilus, and their ייחודים בפנימיוס and חיצוניוס. מעתה יש, this was in the previous oisios, מעתה יש לבאר פרטי עניין אורוס דזו. Now we have to understand, to explain the details of the subject of the lights of the middles of Atzilus, of Zo, שנקרא ישראל ויעקב, which is called ישראל and יעקב, וכל פרטי הייחודים דזון, שנקראים ייחוד ישראל ולאה, או ייחוד יעקב ורחל, כולו כידוע. And we have to learn about all the detailed ייחודים, unifications, of the male and the female aspect of the midos of Atzilus, which means Zo and Malchus. Zun is Zachar v'Nekeva. Zun is abbreviation of Zachar. De means of. The middle of. De. Zun is Zachar u'Nekeva. A male and female. So the Yehudim of Zachar u'Nekeva, which means the middles of Atzilus with Malchus, of Atzilus שנקראים ייחוד ישראל ולאה. Yichud Israel v'Leah is a higher Yichud or inner Yichud between the middles and Bina. Bina is called Leah. Or Yichud Yaakov v'Rachel, the Yichud of Yaakov, the lower aspect of middles of Zo with Rachel, which is Malchus. Kayadua is known. So we will learn about it. But before that, יש להקדים, we have to preface בתחילה, first, עניין אורוס וכלים, בכלל ובפרט. We have to first preface that with the subject, understanding the subject or the matter of lights and vessels, generally and in detail. והנה מצינו בספר יצירה, שאמר 10 ספירות בלי מה, we find in ספר יצירה, attributed to Avraham Avinu or Rabbi Akiva, that we edited it, that states that 10 spheros, obviously relating to 10 spheros of Atzilus, bli ma, without any whatness to them, no tangible existence to them. דמשמע מזה שהמה בלי מציאוס דבר מה כלל. From this, that what Sefer Yetzirah says, we understand that there is no, that the spheres of Atzilus are not at all tangible. וכן במאמר אליהו ולאו מכל עינון מידוס כלל. And as Eliyahu states, that the midos of Atzilus are not at all from the midos that we know. And they have no form to them. They have no description to them that we can describe because they are not formulated. They are intangible. ולכאורה יש סתירה לזה ממה שאמר דאפיקס יוד תיקונים. Seemingly there's a contradiction between this, that the Sefer Yetzirah declares that the 10 spheros are blima, are without substance, without any form, without any tangibility. It looks like there is a contradiction to what it says, the apikas yud tikunim. I think this is the Zohar. You can look inside. The footnote 4, you can check. That he issued 10 tikunim, 10 establishments or 10 garments, or tikunim is hard word to translate. Letaken means to fix something, to establish something, to letaken seuda, to fix a meal, letaken kli, to fix the keli. It could be also correcting or fixing, yes. It has a lot of meanings to it. But except certainly you have already a sense of some kind of a form of expression. Some kind of tangibility, something. So it says that on one hand that 10 spheros without any tangibility, blima, and on the other hand, apikas 10 tikkunim, you issued 10 garments or 10 tools or 10 establishments or 10 sfirot le'achaza chulut, to reveal yourself and to conduct the world. משמע מזה שהם בבחינת מקור להשפעה בביאה. That means that these 10 tikkunim, whatever you call them, these 10 spheres are really a source of ashpah to the created worlds, to biyah. And biyah are certainly tangible worlds. ואם כן, and if this is the case, המה בבחינת מציאוס דבר מה. They have to have some kind of מציאוס because they are a source of מציאוס. וכן מבואר בזוהר בעניין הספירות, also it's explained in the Zohar regarding the spheros, שנקרא רזה דשמא קדישא, that it's called the secret of the holy name. The holy name obviously is Yud K Vav K, and these spheros and the names that come about with the spheros are the secrets of the holy name of God. וכידוע, and is known, שיש ד' שמות בכללוס 10 ספירוס דאצילוס, that there are 4 names generally to the 10 spheros of Atzilus. They are called by 4 names. Ab, Sag, Ma, and Ban. Shem Ab, the name of 72, Bemilu Yudin. That means when you spell out Yud K Vav K, the Vav and the K are spelled out with a Yud, which means you spell out Hey in Hey Yud, and you spell out Vav, Vav Yud Vav. That's called Milu Yud. You fill out the word, you spell it out with a Yud. Then you come to the Gematria of 72, and that's Shem Ab. And Shem Ab הוא בחוכמה. And Shem Sag במיlu Yudin ve'alef. Ve'alef echad, I'm sorry. Shem Sag is filling out the Yud K Vav K, spelling it out with Yudin ve'alef echad. With Yudin and Vav and 1 Aleph, which means the 2 Heys are spelled Hey Yud, Milu Yud, and the Vav is spelled Vav Aleph Vav. That comes up to 63, and that's Shem Sag, which is associated with Bina. Hu bebina. And Ma, Shem Ma, the name of 45, that's the name that is associated with Zo. There's Bemilui Alephin, when you spell out the name Yud K Vav K with Aleph. So the Hey will be Hey Aleph, and the Vav will be Vav Aleph Vav. Then you get to 45, and that's the Zo, the male midos of Atzilus. And then Shem Ban, which is 52, Bemilui Ahen, which means that you are spelling out the letters with doubling it. Like a Hey will be Hey Hey, Vav will be Vav Vav. That's another way to spell out Hey and Vav. And that gets you to 52, and that Hu b'Malchus, associated with Malchus. So the different names, there are different names to the 10 spheros. And that's called the secrets of the holy name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, as the Zohar calls it. However, the point is that bechol tfisa, bebchinas Shem, ubebchinas metzius davar ma. Anytime you give something a name, it is bebchinas metzius davar ma. You give it some kind of tangibility, because a name means a description. If you that gets a hold of it, like your name gets a hold of you. It's a description of you that gives you some kind of a personality or metzius, that through this name I connect to you. So the name of something it's the form, it's a description of something. And therefore, when something is now defined by a name, הוא בבחינת מציאות דבר מה. It gets to be, have some kind of מציאות of an existence. It's not that intangible anymore. ואיך אמר 10 ספירות בלי מה? And how did he say 10 spheros without any tangibility? So it looks like there is a contradiction. And with this contradiction, we are going to sleep tonight unless you by yourself will read further on. And otherwise, we will continue next week, Be'ezras Hashem.